Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. I am Steve Wraith, and again, the bearer of bad news. It's with deep regret that we announced the passing of John Owen, who was the man behind Jab's signature. John was a very good friend of mine. We go back many, many years through boxing and through my involvement with boxing. He loved the unlicensed stuff that I did, but was delighted when I went into the pro game. And a man who had many connections, like myself, very connected with the Fury family, very close friends with Tyson and Peter and John, and a fighting man himself from Carlisle, but also a family man and a man who had a lot of respect up and down the country. John was taken from us yesterday at the young age of 40. After suffering an asthma attack, and our thoughts go with him, his family, and he leaves a beautiful family behind, and all his close friends. I know this has hit a lot of people hard, spoken to a lot of people today, and I only found out in the last couple of hours myself, but I've spoken to his business partner at Jab in particular, Ash, who's a very good friend, and John was a mentor to him, really, and he says that Jab will live on. And I'm sure it will. But jabsignature.co.uk will remain as part of NUFC Matters family in John's memory as long as that company is going. And very, very sad. And I know you'll get a lot of best wishes and love in the chat. And thanks for all the messages I've already received on social media. And that photograph was from December. Saw him in December. Last spoke to him yesterday. And, just gutted. And he was the man essentially behind all of these flyers. And of course, he was the man who came up with the idea of putting mine, Steve Hastie's, and Neil Mitchell's head on a variety of flyers. And I'm pleased to say that John did leave us with a few of these flyers to still go over the next couple of weeks. So his memory will never be forgotten by me. It is like losing a brother, losing John, because he was a top lad, very loyal, as I say. And my respects to his family and all his friends who will be suffering at this moment in time. It's sad. We seem to be hearing more of this, John and Malcolm, don't we?
We certainly do. It's real tragedy.
Everything into perspective, boys, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, don't forget as well, I will be paying a little bit more of a tribute to John in the show that follows this. We have got our current affairs show starting tonight, and I'm joined just after 7 by Patricia Devlin and Lee Davies. We'll be taking your calls potentially on what is happening in the world today. Yeah, could be politics, could be religion, could be a daft story you've seen in the news, but that is what we're doing between 7 and 8 on a Thursday. So make sure you set a reminder and tune into that after this show. And Malcolm, before I forget, I must show you this photograph. I've had this loaded on the system for weeks, and I'm sure this will go down well with some of our viewers. Tell us about this, Malcolm.
Oh, good heavens!
Holiday with Supermac.
Yeah.
Where is that? Athens.
That was at the end of my first season with Newcastle, and of course it's the Acropolis in Athens, and that was the summer of 1972, and of course the Parthenon that you see behind. It was only a few years later that they said, right, no more tourists, because there was such wear and tear being created. That they needed to preserve it. So people, I think they still can't go up there to this day now.
So it was all your fault, Malcolm, was it?
It was all my fault, yeah. My oversized plates caused all that damage. But it was an absolutely amazing place, Athens. It really was. But I can tell you a little story about it if you like.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay. I was walking through Athens. We were staying in Marathon, which of course is just over 26 miles from Athens. We stayed in a super little hotel there. Lovely, lovely people. The Greeks were they're just so charming and friendly. And anyway, we're just walking through Athens, and coming towards me, I looked and I thought, oh, for heaven's sake, I know that guy. And he's looked at me, and there's that spark of recognition. Now, when I was 15, I think, so this was 7 years beforehand, I had gone to Stamford Bridge to watch, to see Bobby Tambling's testimonial match. And it was Chelsea playing the rest of the world side. And there was an aged midfield player called Ferenc Puskás in the away side, and he had a massive, great gut on him, and the Chelsea fans were giving him dog's abuse, as they do to anybody who's a bit out the normal, and they were calling him little fat B and all sorts like that. And after about half an hour of total insult, the winger went so far down into the Chelsea half and just lashed across about some 35 yards out of goal. And this little fat so-and-so took it on his chest, it popped up, and he bang with his left foot, and it just flew straight in the top corner, 35 yards. And the whole crowd was just completely silenced. And it was just through utter respect, because it was an absolutely fantastic strike. And here was this guy now, 7 years later, walking towards me in the middle of Athens. And I'm thinking, of course, Puskás, he's a manager here in Athens. He was manager of Panathinaikos. And he recognized me, and my jaw just dropped, because he was one of the greatest footballers I've ever seen in my life. He and Di Stefano, they were quite incredible at Real Madrid, and also, just out of interest, Puskás played for certainly 2 countries, and Di Stefano played for 3 countries, if memory serves me right. You can't imagine that happening today. But anyway, so Puskás he's come straight at me, and he's gone, I know you, in broken English. And I said, I know you as well. You're Ferenc Puskás. He said, yes, and you are Malcolm MacDonald. He said, you've just finished your first season with Newcastle. I said, yeah. He said, and you've done very, very well. He said, you've scored a lot of goals there. I said, well, thank you very much. He said, what are you doing on Thursday night? And I said, well, I don't think I'm doing anything. Good, he said, I want you to come and play for Panathinaikos. I said, I can't come and play for Panathinaikos. I said, for one, I've got no boots. I said, 2, it needs sort of international clearance, and do all sorts of insurance and paperwork and heaven knows what else. He said, we have a friendly match. He said, but it's a big occasion, a very big occasion here in Athens, and it's a holiday, and we make a real big show of it. He said, and you come and play for us as a guest player. He said, Newcastle United. Ah, yes, he says, I know. He said, your manager is Joe Harvey. I said, yeah, that's right. And he said, good, I will ring him up. Well, the next day, the phone goes in my hotel room, and it's Joe on the phone, Joe Harvey. And he says, "You'll never guess who I've just had on the phone." He says, "You'll never guess." He said, "I've had one of the greatest footballers ever that's been on this planet on the phone to me." He said, "Ferenc Puskás." He said, "What are you doing out in Athens?" He said, "Are you meeting up with these great players?" I said, "Look, we just bumped into each other on the street." He said, "Well, he's asked me if you can go and play." I said, and I said to him, "Well, of course he can." He said, "Whatever you want, Mr. Puskás, you can have anything," sort of thing. And sure enough, they got all the paperwork sorted out, and I played on that Thursday night. I think it finished in a 1-1 draw, and I scored for Panathinaikos. But over there in Greece, everything was geared to the Greek physique, because it was a team of all of Greeks. You know, there weren't the foreigners moving about as there are now, and they have a much smaller frame than us Brits, and so when I pulled the shirt on, it sort of split down the sides and what have you, and it was the only way I could get it on, and they didn't have anything bigger. I played in borrowed boots. I was a size 9, and it was a size 8.5. They'd look for the biggest boots in the club, and so I had to wear small boots, and it was a bit painful, but nevertheless. So before the game, we're sat in the dressing room, and I said, "Well, what time are we supposed to be starting?" And they said, "It's about 9 o'clock we start." We let it cool down a bit, and he said, "We wait for the people to come." I said, What do you mean you wait for the people to come?" They said, "Well, the shop shut at 9 throughout Athens." He said, "And we always wait. We give the shopkeepers the time to close their shops and arrive here at the ground, and of course their customers as well." And so between about 9 and 20 past, there was this sudden rush of people all coming into the ground. And once they were all in, then the referee sort of blew his whistle and said, "Right, come on, everybody out." And out we went onto the pitch, had a quick warm-up, and got the game started. And it was absolutely baking hot, but it was a wonderful experience, I have to say. And it was all thanks, really, to not only this chance meeting on the streets of Athens, but also the fact that Joe Harvey, he just said, "Oh, anything for Puskás," and he had so much respect for the man. So yeah, I had a game for Panathinaikos, John, but didn't want to shout out about it too much.
Now, John, where were you? Were you in Newcastle, or were you in a bar across there?
The interesting thing, Steve, listening to Malcolm, and he has told me that story privately. The interesting thing, listening to Malcolm talking about Puskás, was that my one meeting with Puskás was that he came over to Newcastle and played in Jackie Milburn's testimonial.
Oh, did he?
He did, yes.
Oh, wow.
And I was involved with Jackie, Malcolm, at the time, of the testy, and we all went to the Dolce Vita nightclub in Newcastle afterwards, as you tend to do, and it was a celebration of War Jackie's night, and we sat on this big table in the nightclub. You know, in those days this was the proper nightclub, not the floating nightclub, and they used to have great acts on, and
yeah, they did.
In Mansfield appeared everybody, and we sat on the table, and at that stage in life, Puskás didn't really talk much English, but he dominated the whole table with his sheer presence because he was Puskás. And as Malcolm said, if any young listeners, watchers tonight haven't seen him, go and put him on YouTube, because this fella is extra special. And by the way, Joe Harvey played in that testimonial, which is why, apart from loving Puskás as a superstar player, he'd be overawed by him because he played in Jackie Milburn's testimonial, and Puskás was the star attraction. And we've got to remember, when we won the European Fairs Cup with Joe Harvey in Budapest, which is the background now to Puskás. It was only during the 50s the Hungarian uprising spoiled the domination of Hungary in
Yes.
It came over to Wembley and were the first foreign side to beat England women, beat them 6-3, and then went over. A return was in Budapest, and they hit 6 or 7, and England got 1. I think actually Ira Borders, who played for Newcastle, got that England goal, but they were in a different league,
weren't they?
Else, and it was all killed off because of the uprising. And the last of the great club sides was Uzpestoza, that played us in the final in 1969. But as Malcolm well said, if you're a young lad and you're listening to this at the end of the show or tomorrow or whenever, go over to YouTube, stick Ferenc Puskás in, and you'll see one of the roly-polies, but you'll also see one of the greatest left foots you've ever seen.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, couldn't agree more. And of course, that he and Di Stefano were part of the Real Madrid side that won the European Cup 5 years in a row.
Yes, absolutely. Superstars.
And was it Stuttgart that they beat 7-3?
Up in Scotland.
It was a hand and heart,
was it? European Cup that year, which was supposed to be the greatest final ever. The won 7-3. Was it Hampton, I think, Malcolm?
Right. Well,
they were the stars of that side.
An incredible performance by Real Madrid. Yeah. And of course, Puskás and Di Stefano were leading it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Great memories. Happy days.
Yeah, spot on. Great stuff.
And I've just thought, Di Stefano, he's still going now, isn't he?
Yes,
he's like a chief executive or general
every time Real Madrid sign a superstar, which is regularly, he's on the photograph with them, isn't he? Representing, he's sort of, whatever title he is, he's an ambassador of the club, isn't he? And one of the great players as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic memories. I know our viewers love it when you go off on a tangent like that, and always good to hear those stories. And I knew that picture would bring back some memories. So
absolutely, yes.
I'm glad.
Were you impressed with the top?
Very, very good.
Very summary, yes.
I thought it was another string to your bow. I thought you were doing a bit of an Ann Chalmers, and it was at Ann Chalmers and doing Holiday with Supermac. I thought it was a TV series or something.
I actually thought it was one of these jab things where they'd stuck Malcolm's head on a different body,
John would have loved that, definitely. Okay, let's talk transfer window, guys. I mean, John, we'll come to you first. Tell us what you think then. Good transfer window?
Yes, I think that the owners did everything possible and everything we could have hoped for. They didn't get everything we hoped for, and not getting a striker worries me to death. But that wasn't their fault. On the last day, they agreed terms, and we thought we'd got the young French sensation, but he got cold feet. He's 19. He wanted time to think about it. He knew he had plenty of future ahead of him, etc., etc. And then, of course, we were looking as if we were going to get Jesse Lingard, and Manchester United put the block on that. He was desperate to come. And yes, I am concerned big time about the lack of another striker, because we're stuck with only one man. Wood, there's Gale, absolutely, but it seems that under no circumstances whatsoever will he be picked. I mean, I'm certain he would have gone out on loan had the teenage French kid come in. But with him not coming in, I had to make certain they kept him because they need numbers. But with Wilson injured, we're down to Wood. We had the panic with Chris Wood, didn't we, when the New Zealand match was off with COVID, and we were very worried that he might not be available for Everton because we didn't know which of the New Zealand players were isolating with COVID. Thankfully, it's not Wood, so he will be available for the Everton game, but it shows how badly off we are top. But otherwise, they did it from it. We got 5 people in. I think that the owners were also very shrewd because four of those 5 players have a terrific Premier League background. That includes Trippier because, of course, he's got a background with Spurs and Burnley.
Mm.
We've got Target on loan from Aston Villa. We've got Dan Burn from Brighton. So the only one of the so it means they hit the ground and they're not surprised and they're acclimatized and they know the Premier League inside out because we haven't got time on our side. The only guy who's a risk in quotes is Bruno, the midfielder. And to be perfectly truthful, good players adapt quickly to new surroundings, and he is unquestionably a good player. I think it was an excellent window. We spent 90 million. Can you imagine Mike Ashley spending 90 million in a January window, in a 1 month window like Newcastle did, and they committed about 30 million on top to try to get the Jesse Lingard and the French kid. Didn't happen, was not their fault. So yes, I'm happy with the window. I am fed up with outsiders having a dip at us, and we've had Darren Bent saying that he's underwhelmed by Newcastle this window. Well, he's an ex-Mackham, so perhaps he ought to concentrate on Roy Keane and a 39-year-old centre forward. But that was meant in fun, by the way. But also, we had people like Danny Murphy and Paul Merson having a go about Newcastle signing. And even Shay Given, bless him, who we adore and is an absolute legend, said he was underwhelmed. Well, I'm not underwhelmed. And I think the majority of Newcastle fans aren't underwhelmed. And I would like those guys to come back at the end of the season when we stay up and apologise for downgrading Newcastle United's January window, because I think they've had a real pop at this, and I think the onus now is on Eddie Howe, his coaches, the new signings to justify being signed, and whoever remains in the team to justify not being part of the cull and get Newcastle out of the position.
Sure, but John, also, I really have felt over this January window that the Premier League clubs are doing what they said they would do, and that is refuse to do business, make it very, very difficult and very awkward for Newcastle. And so we've had very much had to look away from these shores to get players in. It's not been easy. It never is in January.
No, January is an awful month. And yeah, we've got people in, a kid, our Geordie lad in from Brighton and the Villa lad on loan.
Yeah.
But Manchester United, I feel, Jesse Lingard was desperate to come here. And I know the Manchester United manager said since on the last day, he decided he didn't let Lingard out because of the Greenwood situation. But long before that, Manchester United were nailing us. Manchester United stood in Lingard's way for 2 reasons. First of all, West Ham wanted him, and they didn't want to sell him to somebody that's a competitor for a top 4 place, which is perhaps understandable. But second, they didn't want to sell him to us because they would like loan him out to us, because they would like us to go down, because we are long term, middle term, if we stay up, we are almost immediately next season a challenge to Manchester United. And they want to say Saudi money, we don't like it, etc., etc. By the way, we can go away and form a breakaway European League, but we don't like Newcastle United suddenly getting rich. And I think they stood in our way deliberately by saying, if you want him, you're going to have to pay 12 million to us if Newcastle stay up. I mean, how dare they? It is an absolute nonsense. And while I wanted Lingard, I'm grateful for Newcastle saying on your bike to Manchester United, because we would have made a rod for our own back, which would have hammered us in the summer if we'd paid 12 million to them for staying up just so we could have one player on loan. What was going to happen to the fees in the summer that we're going to have to pay?
Yeah, absolutely, John. Couldn't agree more. That Man United, I think, on behalf of the Premier League, they were really fishing with Newcastle.
Yeah, I think
dangling this carrot that Newcastle were going to have to pay in blood for.
Lingard is so decimated by the fact that he's going to spend 6 months doing virtually nothing after having the chance to play for Newcastle, that the managers admitted today they've had to give him a few extra days off to, in the manager's quotes, get his head right, because he's so decimated at losing the Newcastle United loan deal. So really, it's very sad.
Because apart from anything else, if it wasn't a long-term situation with Newcastle, at least he was getting himself into the shop window.
Before
what might happen in the summer,
before the World Cup comes along, Malcolm, which now he'll struggle desperately to get in the World Cup squad because he's not going to have enough time on the pitch. And he would have had at Newcastle. But yes, I am worried that we didn't get a striker in. And I know you will be, Steve, because you are anxious to get a striker in. And I am concerned about that. But outside of that, with the 5 signings we got, I think we've done more than okay.
Yeah. What about you, Mal? I mean, it's been a good one. I think it could have been so much better. I think we talked about it on the stage before the Peter Beardsley show the other day. People can see that now. It's up on the YouTube channel. But it was just the one thing that we missed out on was an out-and-out goal scorer. And Callum Wilson has done an interview in a podcast, the Footballers Football podcast, where he's come out and said, exactly that. He's disappointed we didn't get somebody who can score goals, because ultimately, Chris Wood is a good player, but he's not an out-and-out goal scorer. Everybody can see that. So it's, you've now got to hope that other players, because of the players we've brought in, can pitch in and get goals and create chances, and other people can take them. Or Howe has got to find somebody in that team who can do just that. We have to hope Willock has a second half of the season like he did last season.
Steve Dan said to this, what now it's become a fait accompli, is that we, the Royal We, not being Howe or the new owners, but the club, we paid up to £26 million for Willock because he scores goals. And I'm not having a pop at the lad at all, but we've got to hope he steps up to the plate now, encouraged by Bruno coming alongside him in midfield, encouraged perhaps by San Maximum. The appearance of Bruno will act as jump leads for San Maximum, who's been thrilled by this signing. Get him up and running, get him going again. We need somebody like Willock to come out the woodwork, don't we? And not do what he did at the end of last season, because that was ludicrous. He scored in about 7 successive games. But to look the player that made us pay that sort of money and to start scoring goals again, because that's what he was signed for. And we're looking at somebody to do that, because Wood is not a regular goal scorer. He is the guy we're going to have to hang our hat on big time, but we need somebody like Willock to step up to the plate. I really do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would like to see Dwight Gale playing alongside a guy who is more a target man.
It's a funny situation, Malcolm, though, isn't it? It's a funny situation with Dwight Gale. We give him an extended contract. We hung on to him. We haven't let him go away in the January
3 years,
window,
John.
but we don't ever start him.
3-year contract he got.
And we don't let him go out in January, but we don't use him. Not only do we not start him, but we use him very limitedly as a sub.
Absolutely. There he is, sat on the bench, and time and again, Newcastle have been desperate for a goal. Bring him on with half an hour to go, and you give him a chance to get one. But we've hardly been seeing him at all. I really don't understand it.
There seems to be some problem there, Malcolm. There seems to be some problem there. You would think, wouldn't you? If you're truthful,
it certainly seems so, John. But at the same time, then, if there is a problem, why put him on the bench if you're not going to use him?
Because they need 9 on the bench. They've had 2 goalkeepers on the bench recently, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, you only, if there is problems, and I'm not suggesting, you only find out afterwards, doesn't it? When Aubameyang goes away, he says, yes, I had a huge problem with Arteta, etc., etc. But, you know, when you don't see a player used at all, you've got to surmise there's a problem somewhere along the line.
Yes.
Yeah. Some great comments coming in about the 60s. Maybe we should do a show just about the nights out that you and Malcolm probably had, John, at the Dolce Vita, the Bailey Club, and Smith's Pink Eldorado. Anyone?
We went to 1 or 2 of those things, as I've always said, merely to be sociable, of course.
Merely to be sociable. Chicken in a basket at the Dolce Vita, says Jeff. I can remember my grandfather taking me to Jackie Milburn's testimonial first night game I went to. Awesome memories. I've got a program from that game. Yeah, it's fascinating. And Terry says, yeah, it was a great night at Jackie Milburn's testimonial match. Watched Len Shackleton nutmeg Puskás as Puskás just stood there and applauded him. Great stories, that.
The interesting thing on Len Shack was that because Len Shack was my big mate, when he was reporting for the People, he was my big mate. And when we went all over Europe in the Fairs Cup, he was my roommate, Shack was. And he was a very proud man. He was known as the Clown Prince of football, as you know. And famously, way before his time, he when he did his life story, he put Chapter 8, what directors know about football, left the page completely clear, turned over Chapter 9 on the next page. And it was fabulous and it was good. And he used to say things like, when he used to write a report, he would say, Newcastle are going places, but who wants to go to Wimbledon, Wigan and whatever, which meant they were going to be relegated because it was a small team. And he was a great character. But for that match, because he was very proud about his ability, which was quite phenomenal, he went into private training. He was only playing in the game before the big game, you know, where they put the oldies on. But he went into training at St. James's Park secretly to sort of do his tricks and make certain he was a little bit sharp. And one of the things he did during the game was that the ball dropped at his foot and he flicked it with the outside of his foot. He dropped on one knee, went like that with his finger, come here, and the ball spun round the circle and come completely back to him while he was on his knee. He was up. One very, very quick story about Chuck. We went over to Las Vegas once very early on in my time at Newcastle United on a promotional trip. And he said to me, we went in the bar and he said, Gibbo, he says, say now, but I'm just going to do a couple of things when I talk to you. He thought I'd have a bit of fun. So we're sitting at the end of the bar and he takes $1 out of his pocket. And as we're talking, he flips it up in the air, spins it up in the air, and he sticks his foot out. He sticks his foot out and the dollar dropped onto the instep of his foot. He held it there for a few seconds, kept talking, flicked it up again like that, leant forward and it dropped into his top pocket. He did it 3 successive times. The people in the bar were absolutely fascinated. We never paid for another drink on the whole of it because people wanted, and they nicknamed him Yorkshire. Hi, Yorkshire, when we come down and tonight. And he played over in America for Sunderland, and he got appearance money to play because he was tricks and everything.
Yeah.
Sunderland played, but if they included Shaq in the team, he got appearance money. He never bought it out, evidently. He left it in the bank there, and he used that bank while we were over there. And he took me I was skint. But every night, he said, Gibbo, he used to turn up, knock on my door, and he would have a monogrammed shirt on with his initials and magnificent suit. And he'd say, we're going out tonight on me, Gibbo. And he took me round the shows, and we went Judy Garland one night, we went Sammy Davis Jr. the next night, and he paid for them all. And they were the extremes. Judy Garland was so far gone at that time, she walked on stage, faced the back of the stage, and started singing with her back to the audience because she was pied completely. The next night, we saw Sammy Davis Jr., who was magnificent.
Oh, wasn't he brilliant, Sammy Davis? Oh, my word.
But the Americans were so in love with Judy Garland, she was standing facing the back of the stage, singing Over the Rainbow or something, and the audience are going crackers. I'm shouting, turn round. The rest of the audience are going berserk because it's Judy Garland. But memories of Shaq, lovely times.
Oh, absolutely. I must tell you a personal one. When I was playing with Newcastle, and I came out after training one lunchtime, and Shaq was outside of the double doors at St James Park, and he said, Mel, he said, would you mind if I had 20 minutes with you? I said, no, not at all, Shaq. Be a pleasure. So I walked over, and Shaq, he had a 7-iron in his right hand, and he was bouncing a ball up and down on the head of the 7-iron. And he and we spoke for approaching half an hour. He never once looked down at the club and the ball, but the ball hit the club head every time. It never touched the ground, and he never looked at it. And he just had this ball going up and down, up and down. And of course, a 7-iron, it's only got a fairly narrow head on it. And I was just mesmerized. I was just looking down at this ball going up and down and sort of trying to concentrate, for heaven's sake, on what Shaq was asking me. And
he was a wonderful,
he was a genius with the ball.
I mean, he was a fabulous footballer, obviously. He lived his life on the golf course. That was what he adored, and he had that sort of skill. And he was an outstanding cricketer that played in league cricket up here, as Bobby Robson did, and he was an absolute outstanding cricketer as well. He was just an all-round sportsman and a very, very
I could imagine him as a batsman just being able to read spin.
Oh, absolutely.
Where others are just bemused by it. I could imagine him. He knew exactly what the ball was going to do.
He was Paul Gascoigne before Paul Gascoigne.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, with the story that you just told about the dollar coin, Rodney Marsh picked that up, and he started doing it. He learnt it from Shaq.
Well, I mean, he had to do something because on the field he was more a clown in the circus than
well.
I mean, he had ability, but he was and you've told the story before.
He could be really annoying, Marshy. Yeah, really annoying. Albeit, I saw him when I was a youngster supporting Fulham, and Rodney Marsh. He was about 18, and he was absolutely phenomenal. And he would just just go through people. Send the goalkeeper the wrong way, slide the ball in the net, and you'd sort of look back upfield, and there were people just lying all around the pitch, and he'd just put them on their backsides. Phenomenal. But
Steve, this is getting like all our yesterdays.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's many a conversation. There's many conversations I have when I'm actually going to the game. People go, I love that Supermac and Gibbo show. You kind of get a word in mind. And I went, no, I can't. I said, but that's what it's all about. People love hearing your stories. You don't need to hear me. Okay, we'll have a quick ad break. Thanks to all our sponsors. Spider VPN for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the Google search list. They are the boys to trust and will protect your computer from unwanted bugs. Skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245, and to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Arcot Interiors for all your kitchen necessities. You can find them at the bottom of Heaton Road, and Google Arcot Interiors. They come up at the top of the Google search list. Thanks also to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks also to jabsignature.co.uk for all of the flyers that they do for us. Thanks to Media Arts for all the video work. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week, and they are all free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. Click share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. The show usually goes up 24 hours after the show. If you want to join the NUFC Matters cult and get a cup, a pen, a scarf, and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw, put your phone over this QR code and it will take you straight to the website. Failing that, go to nufcmatters.com and become a member. If you want to come and see Malcolm MacDonald pre-match or post-match, we are at the Dog and Parrot. It's kid-friendly and it goes great food and beer, and you can come and meet Malcolm in person before the match or after the match during the season. Make a donation to the food bank via nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. The matchday bucket is operational 365 days of the year. If you want to follow us on social media, then go to NUFC Matters. We've got a Facebook group and we've got a Facebook page. And if you're into the true crime stuff that we do, then follow Steve Wraith's True Crime Interviews, and that is a Facebook group. My personal Twitter following page is @Steve Wraith, and Instagram is Steve Wraith. Give me a follow on there too. Okay, just want to talk to you about the Premier League squad that's been confirmed, guys. 25-man playing squad for the remainder of the season. Out go Kieran Clark, Isaac Hayden, Jeff Hendrick, Jamal Lewis, and Freddie Woodman. And in come Dan Burn, Bruno Guimaraes, Matt Targett, Kieran Trippier, and Chris Wood. And Isaac Hayden has taken to social media and he's put a statement out, which reads as follows. I am bitterly disappointed to have not been included in the 25-man squad for the second half of the season due to injury. It's been a tough 12 months for me, with injuries massively affecting my availability for the club. Now is a time for me to reflect. I'll be working harder than ever before to come back stronger like I always do. I'll be a supporter like everyone else, and I'll be supporting the lads and the staff as best I can for the rest of the season. We all want to see the club climb the table as much as possible, and I am no exception. Take care, Isaac. Quite an emotional thing to have to do that for any player, because you're out the squad now and you can't play anymore. Malcolm, come to you on this one before John. And I mean, no great surprises other than Isaac Hayden, really. But he's injured. We can't do anything about that. He's not worth a place in the squad if he's injured.
No, sure. And manager Eddie Howe, he's had to make some hard decisions, of course, on this. You didn't mention Jamal Lewis. I thought he was excluded from the 25 as well.
Yeah, I'll just read I'll read the thing out here. The latter.
I think he
I did. Yeah, Dubravka, Darlow, Gillespie, Dummett, Targett, Manquillo, Trippier, Kraft, Byrne, Lascelles, Shaw, Fernandez, Murphy, Ritchie, Guimaraes, Sean Longstaff, Shelby, Joe Linton, Willock, Fraser, St. Maximin, Almiron, Wilson, Gale, and Wood. Yeah, so Lewis is out as well. Yeah.
So Lewis, and I think there's a Turkish club that's interested in him, and he might well go in the next few days. Because their window is open until I think the 8th of this month. Yeah, but it's a difficult one for the manager, but he's got the new players in. And the situation that Newcastle are in, nobody can complain right now. Nobody at all. And so I do have the feeling that we are going to see something quite new and fresh against Everton. I think it's going to be a whole new atmosphere in the ground from obviously the supporters, but I think on the pitch that Eddie Howe. I'm just so disappointed, and we mentioned this earlier. Just so disappointed that that there hasn't been a new man up front. But failing that, there are others who will give support. I think that one, and I keep saying this, but I'm going to keep saying it. The one thing that Newcastle are not doing this season is they're not, having got a goal up, scoring the most important goal, which is the second one. And they have to start looking to score a second goal. Well, hopefully, with the changes that there are, that it's going to just lift everybody in the club. You know, new faces coming in, and when the players who have already been here, when they start to see a bit of quality on the training ground, then they start rubbing their hands and saying, right, come on, we can get on with this and go and do the job of getting out of trouble.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree, Malcolm. Yeah, John, what's your take on that then, the 25-man squad and the players left out?
Yeah. Interesting. Hard decisions had to be made. And yet, with hindsight, the only slight raising of the eyebrow I think any Newcastle fan might have had would be over Lewis. I mean, Kieran Clark he's been big-hearted, he's done a job for us in the past, but he'd become a walking disaster. When you think of Norwich, within 9 minutes or 8 minutes, he was sent off, he makes mistakes, he had to go. Hendrick...
Plus the fact, John, that he's just been sent off whilst Newcastle really were on a sort of goodwill trip.
You train the local bloke when you're on a goodwill tour. I mean, that is guaranteed.
That's writing your own death warrant out, isn't it?
That's guaranteed to make you top of the pops, isn't it? I mean, Hendrick, the only thing that surprised me with Hendrick's, not he's in the 25, but they actually found a club that was willing to take him, which is QPR on loan.
Yeah.
Woodman was always going to go to Bournemouth. That had been on for a while. Isaac Hayden, yes, might have been a shock, but we knew, didn't we, before he put this emotional thing up on social media, we knew he's got this long-term injury. He'd had a big op. If you're not available for 9/10 of the games, then you've got to be left out, because there's no wiggle room anywhere at all. And as Malcolm said, with Jamal Lewis, it's pretty certain that he'll go to Turkey, because it's February the 8th when their deadline is. What is interesting, is from us panicking, but we didn't have left backs, etc., all of a sudden, the only official left back originally in the club while Dummett was injured, Lewis, is expendable and is allowed to go out on loan, because we've got Target, we've got Paul Dummett, we've got Manquillo, who plays very, very well on his wrong side, etc., so we're covered. But one of the the problem Newcastle United have had, and you've only got to look at the league table to see it, is that they've let 43 goals in 21 games. It is phenomenal. What is the situation now? 3 of that back 4 that have let in 43 goals have been replaced with new signings. There's only going to be 1 of the original back 4 getting a side. And while Bruno is terrific in his passing percentage, he is also terrific in screening off the midfield in front of his centre halves. So for Brazilian, he puts himself about. He's physical. He puts himself about. He wins the ball, etc. We have addressed a huge Achilles heel in the side, and that gives me real hope. Albeit that we are playing 2 sides at home in a 5-day period that have both had a lift of their own, Everton and Villa, by the appointment of very big name managers who have quickly brought people in. I mean, we start off with Everton. Lampard's coming on transfer deadline day. They announced 3 new guys. They confirmed Lampard, they announced Donny van der Beek, and they announced Dele Alli. That has made our job harder. There's no question about that. The 2 top players, Van der Beek and Ali, are both cup tied, so they won't play on Saturday in Everton's cup game against Brentford. So their debuts for Everton will be at Newcastle. They've made it tougher, and Gerrard comes up on the Sunday after that, having revitalised Aston Villa, brought in Coutinho and other players during January. So their status has gone up. But let me say, so's ours. We've got 5 people in the transfer deadline. So while Everton have improved and while Villa have improved, we have improved. And I think we have improved an awful lot. And I'm looking, we've got to say that we want 4 points out of 6, absolute minimum from those 2 games. And really, we want 6 points out of 6. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun, if it's possible to be fun, because we've got to realise, guys, that by Saturday night, we might be 1 position further down the table than we are now, because we've got Burnley v Watford in the Premier League on Saturday, the only league game while all the FA Cup ties on. And if one of them win, in other words, if it's not a draw, the one that wins goes above us temporarily until Tuesday. So but okay, that's fine. It concentrates minds that the job is not done because the owners have done their job in the window. The job's got to be done by those that are there. And we've got to be optimistic. We've got to be positive, and we've got to be united more than we've ever been united to win this fight. And it can be won, and I believe will be won, not without a huge effort, because we haven't got another striker in, not without a huge effort, but I think it can be won.
Sure. Also, sorry, Steve, to come in on this, but it's only from now that we can start to judge the new manager. You know, it would have been unfair beforehand, but now he's brought in the kind of players that he wants, and he'll be very busy on the training ground, getting everybody organised into the team that he wants. It's going to be an interesting one on Tuesday night, I have to say.
It is, yeah, and I'm still in that zone where we needed a maximum. When we needed maximum points out of those last 3 games, I'm still in that little bracket of games. Malcolm always taught me in the times that I've worked with him to work in sections. So that my section was the last 3 games, which finishes at Everton. So we need 3 points against Everton. That's 7 points out of those 9. Then we'll go into this next set of fixtures, and you know, I'm looking at them and thinking, Aston Villa, tough game, but it's at home. That's got to be. You've got to really be looking for a home win there. And I just want to say about Clark. Listen, the guy's obviously, you know, now coming towards, you know, the back end of his career. But for somebody who was brought in as cover by Rafa Benitez, and then ended up being, a permanent member of the team at times. The guy's been a good servant to us for what we got him for. I've seen a bit of stick that he's been getting on social media. The guy is on Twitter, and you know what? I'll always respect what Kieran Clark's done for this football club. I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure he's not holding his head up with pride at getting sent off in Saudi Arabia. But I think it's a bit harsh, some of the things that have been said to him. He's a consummate professional. He's never let us down in a black and white shirt deliberately. And, unfortunately, he's coming towards the back end of his Premier League career. He may well go down the divisions, who knows? But I like Kieran Clark. Got a lot of time for him. Been lucky enough to meet him on a couple of occasions. And he is a consummate professional usually, you know what I mean? So just think it's a bit harsh what some of the fans have said on Twitter especially about him. But last question, lads, before we finish. Diego Costa. We could get him, John. We could bring him in. We could bring him in as a player. He's a free agent. Is that, and he's a risk, I think in the Joe Harvey phrase that we've heard many times on this show, he caused argument, he caused trouble in an empty house. Is he worth the gamble with us not having a forward at the moment who can score goals on a regular basis?
I don't, if our memories are of him at Chelsea and the memories are of a guy that does cause trouble all over the park, but he also causes trouble in the opposing penalty area. Yeah. He's gone a bit like Snow off a dike. There's no question about that. But if he was realistic about his wages, etc., then to be truthful, it's almost worth taking a risk on anybody of any sort of quality, because temporarily, at the end of this week, having had the elation of a decent transfer window, etc., I was suddenly looking for a fleeting moment at the match against Everton and thinking, we definitely haven't got Callum Wilson. We may not have Chris Wood if he happens to be one of the New Zealand players with COVID, and we won't play Gale under any circumstances. So if he was thrown in then, he would know it was only by a fluke, and his body language tells me there's a problem there. So we are in big trouble. I know would have gone with San Maximum up top, which we've done recently before. But yes, it's the one Achilles heel we've possibly got. And if there was any sort of gamble that might, Costa might increase things by 20%, but that's 20% more than we've got now. And if I've got any concern that makes me think, why wouldn't we survive? It would be a lack of a striker. I still think we'll survive, but it is a risk factor. And you know what I would want to see to allay all my fears? You know what I would want to see, guys? I want to see on Tuesday night, Chris Wood go out there, knock 7 bells out of their defenders, be the big, tough, desperate Dan guy he is, get in there on the air, get in there on the floor, have Bruno behind him, think the back door's locked, and punch his weight. And that would give me a huge, huge lift, because it's the one position we're still looking at under the circumstances. And wouldn't it be fabulous if Chris Wood has a terrific game against Everton? And wouldn't it be reassuring? And because we did pay over the odds from 25 million. Yeah. He himself privately knows that. But that was the release clause. I would like to see him above all else. The two things I want to see before now and the end of the season is Chris Wood justify his signing and Joe Willock remember what he did last season. And I would love Joe to go home tonight and Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday night and Monday night and play all the videos of Newcastle playing at the end of last season and look at how bouncy he was, how he finished, and remember he did that just a few months ago. Let's try to do it again.
Malcolm, quick one before we finish then on Diego Costa. Is that somebody you'd like to see come in? I mean, we are struggling for goals. He would certainly bring something to the team.
He certainly would, without a shadow of a doubt. He could cause trouble in an empty house, couldn't he? So,
Hey.
yeah, but isn't that the kind of person that we need? You know, we don't want a shriveling violet, do we? For heaven's sake, what we want is somebody to get out there and cause mayhem, and look to create things in the box and just get the last touch and smack it in. And he would do that. He wouldn't win any friends maybe in the dressing room. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Right now, what we need, and if he was available to come, which I understand he is, then from what I've heard now, I didn't realise it before the programme. But if he would have just come in until the end of the season, and if he knocked in 10, 12, 14 goals, whoa, all, you know, it's worth a fortune to the club itself. The fact that those goals, they would keep us in the Premiership, and that's all we want at the moment. You know, I'm not after nice guys. We don't need nice guys. Nice guys have put us in this relegation situation. What we need are nasty bastards who'll get us out of it.
Quick prediction, John, for Everton.
2-1 to Newcastle.
2-1 to Newcastle. Quick one from you, Mal.
Oh, that's getting the second goal, John. Can they do it?
I know, but there's still not a 2-goal margin there at the end of the day. I'm looking at the possible back four that there could be, and I think they're going to want to keep a clean sheet in their first game altogether. So I'll take Newcastle 1-0.
Fantastic. Yes, you can see me and Malcolm in the Dog and Parrot on Tuesday. We'll be there at 6 o'clock before the game. So get yourself down to the Dog and Parrot. Free entry. Kids are welcome. Nice food, nice beer, and a bit of crack with me and Mal before the game. And of course, if you like the conversation, me, Malcolm, and Gibbo will be back next Thursday, 6 o'clock. Take care, lads. Have a good week. See you Tuesday, Mal.
Indeed.
God bless.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's